let's talk football. I'm Nolan Dalla, and our show is brought to you by POINTSPREADS.CA and also Spreads.ca, based in Canada. So check out POINTSPREADS.CA. That's our content site that has a lot of news, sports information, particularly with regard to gambling and all the North American sports at POINTSPREADS.CA. If you want to place a bet, a lot of bonuses now, a lot of opportunity to take advantage of match bonuses and even some free play if you sign up at spreads.ca, just like it sounds, spreads.ca. Check it out, and you'll be glad you did. NFL season here continuing, NFL week number 5. Got Major League Baseball also this week going into October, and the NBA Finals. We're just going to be talking football on this show. Again, this is Let's Talk Football, so let's get right to it. Before I get to all the games, I usually do 15 games in 15 minutes. I usually run over. This show will be no different. But before I talk about this week's schedule of games with all the lines and the totals, I did want to spend some time talking about how different this season is. And I think the biggest difference for gamblers that when we look at these games, first of all, the volatility of these games is way up. In other words, it's very difficult to predict not just the point spread outcomes, but certainly the totals forecasting on the games is very difficult as well. I'm not sure anybody really saw that the scoring would just absolutely explode this season. And it certainly has, because the average NFL score this season in 2020 is 50 points a game. So that's the first time in NFL history after 4 weeks that we've seen in excess of 50 points per game scored. In other words, that's 25 points per team per game. And that's just stunning. And I remember, 10 or 15 years ago, an average NFL total was around 40 or 41. So these totals are up by 10 points, certainly over the last several years. And then they've even taken a 4 or 5 point, gone up by that measure just this season since last season. More touchdowns than ever before, more passing touchdowns than ever before. So those of you who are into props and team, team totals, things like that, certainly fantasy sports, very, very affected by what we're seeing this season. Why is this so? Why is this happening? Why are the games so high scoring? Now, there's a lot of things that have been written about this. We could do a whole show on that. Perhaps we should, and maybe we will. The major 2 or 3 reasons, let me give them to you. And first of all, before I give you the reasons why this is happening, I hate to say this, but this is really bad for gamblers. If you want, whenever we are gambling on sports, what we generally like to do is decrease volatility or reduce variance. What's called variance. In other words, we really like to have somewhat of a, I don't want to say a predictable, because nothing's predictable in sports wagering, but we want to have some measures of, from week to week, that what we saw last week or the week before, or the last month, is going to be applicable to this slate of upcoming games. And that's nearly not been the case this season. The scoring means that teasers, the value of teasers is reduced. Certainly the value of taking points with underdogs is reduced significantly. In other words, if a total used to be, say, 39, and you're getting 3.5 or 4 points on a game, that's huge, because it's going to be probably a close game, not a lot of points scored relative to, say, today. And then if you're getting 3 or 4 points, that's a big deal. If the total is 57 or 58, like we're seeing on a lot of games, not just this week, but certainly this month and this season, the 3 or 4 points doesn't really matter whenever the average team is scoring, again, 25 points a game. So this makes the point spreads much less, it just doesn't come into play as much, as what I'm trying to say. And then the value of, say, a point or a half point, things like that, is also reduced. So even things that, if you are like me, like I live in Las Vegas, and I used to hustle to try to get that extra half point, or I drive across town. It used to be, before we had online wagering, we could, we'd have to go to casinos and wager there. So, it was like, is it worth my time to go to drive, 20 miles to find a 6.5 and then it's 7, everywhere else. Well, it depends on how much you're wagering, and you have to, decide how much your time is worth. But today, of course, you can just check everything online and then make what's called comparison shopping. But again, the difference between these numbers is just not as significant as it has been in the past because of the proliferation of scoring in the NFL. And I consider that, as a sports gambler for 30 years or so, I consider that very difficult. So I'm not making excuses because I'm right around 500 for the season. If you look at my record, I've won 6 out of the last 8 seasons. I've had 2 losing seasons, but also 6 winning seasons. And then this season, I'm about 500. I think 19 wins and 20 losses. So I'm very honest. I always give the listeners an indication of where I'm at and what I'm doing. But I always like to look at every game because, in fact, you want to look at every game once or twice, or if you have the time to look at it several times, because what you see, say a third or fourth passing, sometimes you'll catch something or catch an opportunity. So that's you just have to constantly be looking for for opportunities here in sports gambling. So let's look to this week's games, and I'll spend a little time on each one. I don't have that many plays. I think I have 5 this week, so I'll just go through them one by one, and this is really in the order that they're listed on the line sheet. Let's begin at the top, an NFC South rivalry matchup, and that's Carolina is playing at Atlanta. And this is a really intriguing matchup because Carolina has completely turned their season around the last couple of weeks. They started out 0-2. Now they're 2-2. And they're playing very good ball. Terry Bridgewater, is not going to be a great fantasy quarterback in the sense of producing a lot of points and yards or what have you. But all the guy does is win. I believe his record as a starter is something like 19-9 or 19-10 as a starter. So he's winning, almost 2-1, twice as many games as he starts, as he loses when he starts. So that's something to be said for this team. That's a very young team. They absolutely whipped up on the Arizona Cardinals last week. I didn't see that coming because I had Arizona last week, so I lost money, and I've learned my lesson with Carolina that this is a feisty team. On the other hand, the Atlanta Falcons, coming off a short week, losing at Green Bay on Monday night. I don't know what kind of a mental condition they're going to be in, but I would say that this is the Atlanta Falcons is a team that you really cannot touch right now. You just can't touch them because the defense, first of all, is one of the worst in the NFL. Mentally, we don't know where this team is at because they had lost a couple of close games in a row, blowing 15-point leads back-to-back in weeks 2 and 3, and then, of course, getting blown out. Not really blown out, but really pretty handled by the Green Bay Packers pretty easily. Now, this is a winnable game for the Atlanta Falcons, which is why they're laying 3.5 points. That's why the line's 3.5. And I think that this is just the odds makers have just overreacted here to the situation. I don't think they've given the Panthers nearly enough credit that they deserve, being a 2-2 team that's very much alive in the playoff race. Atlanta's season's just about over, really. So give me 3.5. At 1.5 or 2.5, I'm not touching this game. But 3.5. Now, I just am talking myself out of something. Earlier, I mentioned how key numbers in NFL wagering are not as significant this season. But here you've got a division rivalry, a winless team, a team that has some confidence. Winless team, Atlanta, a team that has some confidence, Carolina. And you've got Carolina getting a hook on a field goal, 3.5. So I would take the Carolina Panthers here. I just think you have to do that. Total of 53.5. It's hard to bet under on an Atlanta Falcon game. I'm not going to touch that. So I might lean over on this just because of the current trends, but I have no wager on that. So my only play on this game would be looking at the Carolina Panthers plus the 3.5. Also, another thing you may want to look at, the first half, Carolina, pretty strong first half team. Outscoring its foes 39-14 in the first half the last couple of weeks. So this team is prepared. They come into these games prepared. And, of course, the Falcons giving up nearly 35 points a game. I don't want to back that defense with my money. So there's no way I'm going to take the Falcons in this spot on any kind of a wager. The Las Vegas Raiders are traveling to Kansas City. The Chiefs are perfect 4-0, Super Bowl champions. And they're playing their rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders, now at 2-2. The Raiders, after starting 2-0, have played disappointing football the last couple of weeks, particularly last week, really getting handled pretty easily at home by the Buffalo Bills. The Raiders were never really in this game. They seemed to be behind by double digits or around 10 points the entire game. Were pretty much handled up and down the line of scrimmage. Now the Raiders had some injury problems on offense. 4 starters were out. And they will be a little healthier this week. But hey, you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs here, and that's like I said, a roaring freight train. I don't know if I would want to get into right now. Also, the Las Vegas has allowed 30 points or more in 3 of their 4 games. That's not a team that I want to back, that when they're going into Kansas City of all places. And they're also giving up just massive I always look at third down conversion. It's 3rd and 4. Is your defense stopping the opponent? And in the case with the Raiders is absolutely not, because the conversion rate the Raiders have allowed this season is abysmal. It's like 24 or 48. Right at 50% have been converted, the Raiders are allowing. So this is not a good defense in crunch time. Also, as a road underdog, the Raiders do not perform well. They're only 9-15 against the spread in the John Gruden era. So this is a short week for the Chiefs. In other words, they played on Monday night. They won, but they're also back at home again. So I would lean toward the Chiefs here, but I don't like laying 12.5, and that's the number here. The total 57. Surprisingly, as high scoring as the NFL has been this season, the Chief games have not gone out of control like they have in previous couple of seasons. So I might lean slightly under here, but I just can't bet it under in the NFL right now in the way things are going. So slightly on the under, maybe at 57, and maybe laying the 12.5, maybe worth looking at. But really, I'm not going to put any real money down on this matchup. The Los Angeles Rams are traveling to Washington, and this is the third. So it's only the 5th week of the season, and the Rams have already played 3 games on the East Coast or in Eastern time zone: Buffalo, Philadelphia, and now Washington. So a lot of travel miles for the Rams here. The Rams are favored by looks like is it 9 points? Yeah, I think that's the current line is 9 or 8.5. And Washington has started out with a win, but they've lost their last 3 games. It's really, this is just not a game I really want to touch. Washington's been outscored badly in the first half by 75-24. So they're giving up 3 times as many points in the first half. So that's something to look at when you see a team that's not coming out of the locker room with a lot of intensity and they're not prepared, as the Redskins have been in really all 4 games. Because remember the game they won with Philadelphia? They roared back in the second half, and they were down, I think, 20-3 or 20-6 at the half. So this team is not coming out with a lot of intensity. The Rams just are, grinded up kind of an offense. They got almost a bye last week, beating the New York Giants. So they should be somewhat rested here, coming in, playing with confidence at 3-1. I might lean to the Rams in the first half. But, do I want to lay, 6, maybe 6.5? Probably not. So this is probably not a game that I will touch either. This is just a really dismal game. Talk about the sucky game of the week, and that's the Houston Texans are hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And these teams are combined, I think, 1-8, I believe it is. So you've got the 1-3 Jaguars and the 0-4 Texans. And the Texans, of course, had the big news this week where they fired O'Brien, the head coach, got into it with some of his players, including J.J. Watt, on the practice field. I guess there was an altercation, just a real mess in Houston. And, of course, we knew that the Houston Texans, if you watched our preseason shows, we were talking about the Houston Texans could very well be a team that's like 2-6 or 1-7 at the midway part of the midseason, and then they may win 7 or 8 straight, and they could get at least close to 500. So because just a brutal schedule for the Texans, and finally they catch looks to be a very winnable game here, and that's reflected in the point spread, which is the team is 0-4. They just fired their head coach, and they're laying 6.5. Really? I mean, that's my what? So I almost want to play the Texans here. There is a trend that really is very dominant in all sports: baseball, basketball, football, hockey. Whenever a coach gets fired, just that almost lights a match under the players, at least for a week or so, or the next game. And you sometimes will just see an all-out effort, like, let's throw all caution to the wind. We got to win this one. That kind of a like brand new start, hitting the reset button, I guess you would call it, if you have a computer meltdown or something. But anyway, so that's why this line is 6.5. Then the Jaguars have just sucked on defense, especially. Also offense. I mean, they just haven't played well the last couple of games. So I'm not going to touch this. Will I back the Houston Texans laying 6.5 in this condition? Absolutely not. But I do understand why this line is the way it is. And the total is 54. I actually might lean over on this one. You've got two teams with nothing to lose. And I do believe you could see some points here scored by both of these offenses. Some of these games, by the way, have been postponed. I mean, that they've been moved to Monday or Tuesday. And as I record this on Friday, I'm not exactly sure of what games are being played, where or when, and so forth. But I am going to just do them in order. So the one of those games that we're not sure about, I think it's been moved also, is the Bills playing at the Titans, Buffalo playing Tennessee. The Titans are, I guess, favored here by a small number, although I'm seeing just a spattering of numbers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, even though this is really one of the premier matchups of the week. You've got a 4-0 team playing a 3-0 team. Of course, the Titans had the COVID thing hit them, so I'm not sure how many players are out. And again, we have to check that. But Buffalo's won their first 4 games. They're scoring an average of 31 points per game. All the Buffalo games so far have flown over the total. And again, keep in mind, Buffalo was just known as a rock solid under team for certainly the last 3 or 4 years. Now they're flying over as Josh Allen has that offense rocking. And so I may want to look at the over in this game. Tennessee was a really good over squad last season. And it's really a tale of two teams. Tennessee wins all of 3 of its games very, very close. Each game has been very, very tight by less than, say, a touchdown in each case with the Titans. And then Buffalo's just really handled some good teams well. They won on the road at the Raiders last week. They beat the Rams, of course. That says something. So, we haven't seen the line, but I did want to maybe throw out an over to look at the over on this game when it's played. Going on down to the Cardinals playing at the Jets. And, man, I was so disappointed in the Cardinals last week because they'd come off a loss against the Detroit Lions. They go to play what seems to be a very winnable game, playing the Carolina Panthers, and they just absolutely shit the bed is what they did. I think their offense was held to 150 yards passing or something. The Cardinals playing Carolina, 133 yards. Yeah, 133 yards. And they gave up. They surrendered 450 yards to the Carolina Panthers. I mean, that is just a fucking awful performance by Arizona. And you would think that, now Arizona's going to be mad and they're going to take it out on the Jets. That's what they're thinking here, because the line is showing the Cardinals laying 7 on the road at the New York Jets, which are, I think, universally acknowledged as the worst team in the NFL at this moment. I stress at this moment. So I understand why the Jets are getting 7 at home, but my goodness, after seeing how awful the Cardinals were last week, they were down 2 touchdowns the entire game. It was just mind-boggling to watch this. So again, you would think, on paper, well, yeah, the Cardinals should wrap the Jets. Who knows what kind of a mindset the Jets have been in? They played 10 days ago. They lost to Denver at home in New York. Now they're playing another game in New York. So they've had 10 days to stew on this, but the talent is not there. I mean, the talent's not there. The coaching leadership is not there. I don't need to pile on the Jets, but because these are the teams normally I like to bet on because they're getting extra value. No one wants to touch these kinds of teams. It's a pig of a team. No one wants to touch them. But I'm not going to touch them either. I'm not going to. You'd have to give me at least probably 10 to take the Jets, and I'd still hold my nose and and put a blindfold on when I watch the game. So total of 47.5. No real opinion on that total, although it could fly over. That could be a very messy game, especially if the Cardinals do what they should, which is to run up some kind of a lead. The Jets start throwing the ball, and it turns into some kind of a, certainly that's a low total in the NFL now, anything below 50. I mean, you're looking, whoa, look at that, 47.5. So a lean on the over, 47.5 on the Jets Cardinals game. The Steelers have had an off week because of last week's cancellation. They are 3-0. They won their first three meetings, scoring 26, 26, and 28 points. But again, they didn't play last week because the Titans had a COVID condition, so that game was postponed. And the three teams Pittsburgh beat, they beat just some absolute pigs, being the Jets, the Giants, and I think Denver was the other one. So that's a combined win-loss record of 1-10. 1-10. So the Steelers have yet to beat any kind of a football team. And now they get the Philadelphia Eagles, who were banged up, a very ugly 1-2-1. That's their record. 1 win, 2 losses, 1 tie against Cincinnati. And of course, the Eagles were just lucky as hell to squeak by in a I think the Sunday night game where they beat the San Francisco 49ers, really on a fluke because they ran back an interception late in the game. San Francisco is absolutely decimated with injuries. Philadelphia, I mean, much worse than any team in the league. 9 starters out for the 49ers. And the Eagles still were trailing much of that game. So now they're going into rested Pittsburgh that's been off for 2 weeks. The question is, Pittsburgh hasn't played anybody that's worth a damn, and it looks like they won't play anybody worth a damn this week either. The line is 7. They're laying a touchdown. The Steelers are. Total of 45. The game maybe I do lean over just because of trends in the NFL to go over these numbers that are anywhere in the 40s. I'm not going to go over 58 or something, but 45. That'll make me think about going over in that game. I also like the Steelers -7 if I have to wager on this game. Let's move on down to another AFC North game, and that's the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. It's so funny to watch the Bengals. They're 1-3. You would normally not be excited about this team, but there is reason for optimism in Cincinnati, and anyone that's watched them this season has just seen a little bit of improvement each week, a little more confidence, and certainly that's what Burrow, the quarterback, they seem to be, playing well. Again, relative to what their expectations were coming into the season. And the Ravens are just not a good home favorite against the spread in the Harbaugh era. The last, I think, 5 or 6 years, they're 9-16 against the spread. The Ravens are. So when the Ravens lay points as a home favorite, they don't cover. They don't cover the spread, 9-16. So, am I going to take the Bengals? They're getting 13.5. 13.5, that's a pretty good number. So I'm really looking at that, like an apple. I may bite it into it. I don't know if it's going to be moldy or have a worm in it, but I probably will bite on the apple and take Cincinnati. If I can somehow find 14, this is an automatic yes bet. But right now, I'll hold off just for now. But I do like certainly the 13.5. With the Cincinnati Bengals. Division rivalry game, a lot of reasons. Cincinnati a little more confidence, but my goodness, Lamar Jackson may run wild in this game, and they may roll up 45 points too. So I am certainly scared of that, and that's reflected in the point spread. Total of 52, something I probably wouldn't touch either. Miami's playing at San Francisco, and the Dolphins are a very interesting team because they've outgained their opponents. They move the ball fairly well. They roll up points even, and then the Niners have scored a lot of points themselves. This is actually surprising, given how badly they're decimated with injuries. The 49ers scoring 20, 20, and 31 and 36. So if you add up those, they're scoring over 20 points a game, about 28 on average, 28 points per game on average. This is with a team that's just really, in the half the teams in injured reserve. So Garoppolo is I think I've heard that he may play. I think the last I saw this morning was that he was leaning to start. I'm sorry, he was leaning not to start. Excuse me, I misspoke. So we may see Beathard, who's a third stringer, get his get the start here. So it's a real mess, the quarterback situation there in San Francisco. I think with Beathard, or with the way that San Francisco is going, you would think, oh, let's just bet under in these games. But these games are flying over the total. And the way Miami's scoring points and moving the ball and then also giving up points, I do lean over 49.5 here. That's the total in the Miami-San Francisco game. So 49.5 would be my really strong lean. I don't know if I want to make that an official play or not. I do like Miami, though, probably getting, I think, as many as 8 points is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing 8 points with Miami. I do like Miami getting those generous points. San Francisco's 2-2, and you saw what happened with Philadelphia last week where they hosted the Eagles and lost outright. So I don't think they should really be laying this kind of a number. Maybe they should be laying 6.5, maybe 7, maybe. But getting 8, that's enough to make me, take the underdog here. Here's my best bet of the week. The only thing that I'm afraid of on this game is I think the whole world is on the same side I am, and that usually means that we all go down in flames. But the Dallas Cowboys are a very ugly 1-3. They should be 0-4. If you watch football, you know what happened with the Cowboys in the Atlanta game. They should be 0-4, but they're playing arguably one of the worst 2 football teams in the NFL this week with the New York Giants, which is 0-4. And absolutely decimated, certainly offensively. The Giants are a complete mess. They're scoring an average. The Giants are scoring an average of just 12 points per game. They didn't score a touchdown, their last offensive touchdown, their last 2 games. They've gone on their last 20 drives without a touchdown. This is a team that, talk about the Dallas Cowboys defense being just awful, and it has been this season. Well, here on a silver platter is the best possible opponent the Cowboys could play for an aching defense, a really terrible offense, and that's the Giants. So the Dallas has just been absolutely mind-bogglingly awful as a disappointment this season, being at 1-3. But they're not certainly out of the race. They're half game out of the lead in the awful NFC East. So, this is a very winnable game, a chance to bounce right back into the division lead. I think they're just going to take it out and spank the Giants. By the way, the Cowboys, they're 1-3, but they got the number 1 offense in the NFL. They're scoring a ton of points, moving the ball both passing-wise and through the running game. Now, a lot of the yardage comes in what's called a catch-up mode. They're desperately behind. They're throwing every down. They're playing against prevent defenses. So the Cowboys, I think, offensive statistics are a little bit misleading. But this is still a powerhouse offense playing a weak defense, a non-existent offense for the Giants now coming into Dallas. And Dallas, all the motivational factors will favor the Cowboys here. This is a team that they need to absolutely kick the living shit out of. And I believe they probably will. The wild card, what is that? Well, the wild card is Jason Garrett, who, of course, coached in Dallas for 8 seasons. And he's the offensive coordinator for the Giants. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means Jason Garrett knows the Cowboys personnel and to some degree knows certainly the offense because he's an offensive-minded head coach, even though he didn't call the plays. The counter to that is that the Cowboys will know Jason Garrett's inclinations or the way he thinks, I guess. So it really, I think, it kind of cancels each other out. And so this is I don't think that's a factor, I guess is all I'm saying. So again, Dallas is laying 9. It was 9 early in this week. I actually pounded it like on Tuesday, and then I pounded it also in some teasers, and I'll explain that in just a moment. Now it's 9.5, and I think this will be 10 by game time. Get on this now. If you're listening to my voice and you're going to bet the Cowboys, don't wait, because I think this one by game time, it's certainly not going to go down. Who in the hell is going to bet the Giants in this spot? But I think as people look at this, they're like, oh, Dallas is just going to whip up on the Giants. And there's no excuse for them not to. So, again, it scares me that everyone's probably going to be on that same side. The Colts are traveling to Cleveland. Who would have thought this would be such a great game coming up? You've got the Colts are 3-1. The Browns are 3-1. Both teams playing very well. The Browns' offense is playing fantastic. They're scoring all kinds of points. And then the other side of the ball, the Colts are only allowing like 12 points a game on defense. So you got a very good Colts defense, even though they haven't played a lot of tough competition. This is a really intriguing matchup here. I think it's one of the best games of the week to watch will be Cleveland and the Colts. And the total at 47.5. I'd probably lean over on this one and again, many of the reasons I've explained. Just teams are scoring points this season, and when you have low totals like this, just bet them over. And I've done that a few weeks, and you've seen the results were generally favorable to that. The Colts are laying 2.5. Really hard to pick a side there. I guess you may want to take the Browns if you have to take a side, because you're getting points with a home team and a very hot team coming off a huge win. I'm talking about the Browns. So I think the Browns may be worth a look, but certainly the over as well. Then there's another game, the Sunday night game, which is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Seattle. And Seattle is 4-0. And the Vikings are, of course, a very disappointing team this season. Seahawks laying 7 in the total, the highest in the NFL this week at 58. Seattle can't stop anybody, but they're scoring a ton of points. And Minnesota, same situation. Scoring a ton of points, can't stop anybody. So that's why you see a total that's just almost insanely high here at 58. There's a chance of rain. I was looking at that. It's always going to a chance of rain in Seattle, but I think it's a heavier chance of rain on Sunday night with Seattle. I don't know. That sometimes plays actually to an over, because you have wide receivers and so forth making cuts, and the defenders slip and things like that. So I'm not sure even that's a factor here. I would never. I can't imagine a scenario where I would bet over a 58. It just doesn't. Maybe in the MAC conference if it's college football or something, but not in the pros anyway. And so I might lean under, but I'm not going to do that. I don't want to just gamble for the sake of having action. I've done too many of those bets in my life. So let's just skip this game and go to the last one, which is the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome on Monday Night Football, hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. The Saints are 2-2. And the Chargers are 1-3. And the Chargers have not played well the last 3 weeks. They won the opener at Cincinnati. Then they've lost 3 close games in a row. And I think this one here, they're probably in trouble, because the Saints seem to get their mojo back at Detroit last week. The Saints had not played well a couple of games in a row, and then they pretty much handled Detroit very easily. Very similar kind of a team coming up here with the Chargers. And also you've got, I think, Burrow running his 4th start. Now he's going to start against Drew Brees. I think clearly this is a case where the Saints should roll up the points, should win fairly easily. That's reflected again in the point spread, which is 7.5, total of 52. 7.5 is not. I don't want to lay that extra half. That just that's huge. I just don't want to go over that. I'll lay 7 maybe, but I think this is a case where you tease the Saints down and just win the game supposedly. So again, my plays of the week, I should have said that. So the Saints I am teasing. So my plays this week, the official plays I have: Carolina Panthers plus 3.5 at Atlanta. The Pittsburgh Steelers -7 hosting Philadelphia. The Miami Dolphins are getting +8 at San Francisco. The Dallas Cowboys are -9, 9.5 in some places. I'll play the Cowboys as my best bet of the week. And then I have a couple of teasers. I'm making Dallas the hub. In other words, I'm making it on 2 teasers. I'm making it applicable to 2 of the teasers. And I actually will, it's very rare I do this, but I would take a 6.5 point teaser so I can swing it all the way down to 2.5 for the Cowboys. I did this already earlier in the week, so these are the numbers I got. So if to win $500, I'm laying $650 to win $500, but I'm getting the Cowboys at -2.5, not 3. So again, I've got the Cowboys at -2.5 on 2 of my teasers. The other legs, or spokes as we call them, when you do teaser wheels, one of my inventions. When you spoke these other 2 teams, I do Dallas with the Saints. The Saints are -1.5 with Dallas -2.5. That's 1 teaser. And then the other teaser, I lost my train of thought here. There we go. Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers at -1. So I've got the Steelers from 7 down to -1, or actually -0.5 point against Philadelphia. So it's Dallas and the Steelers on one of the teasers, Dallas and New Orleans on the other teaser. So I think that adds up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 wagers in all, and let's hope we go 6-0. I'll take 5-1 though. I'd be happy with that. So anyway, my name is Nolan Dalla. We usually do 15 games in 15 minutes. I did more like, a lot of talking in probably 30 or 35 minutes, but that's the way we do it here at Let's Talk Football, because we certainly talk some football. Again, do check out spreads.ca, especially if you live in Canada. Really a fine site. They've got everything you possibly want to bet on up there. Every single thing, player props, totals, alternative lines, everything. Check out spreads.ca. And then if you want to read some of my material, go to my site, nolandalla.com, or better yet, go to POINTSPREADS.CA. And that's where I post every single day, even multiple times a day. We're posting things on every sport that you hopefully want to bet on. So check out the action and the information there at POINTSPREADS.CA. This is week 5 in the NFL. We'll talk football next week here on Let's Talk Football. Until then, I'll see you, and let's win some money and good luck.